My wife abandoned me and our kids with $50,000 in debt for a millionaire. 6 years later, she came back begging for forgiveness, but I already had a new family and a restraining order with her name on it. I'm 42 years old, I work in finance, and I need to tell this story because what happened 6 years ago basically destroyed my marriage, but also, in a weird way, gave me the life I have now. I guess I should start at the beginning, or at least when things started getting weird with Angela, my ex-wife. We'd been married for like 15 years at that point. We had two amazing kids. Ryan was 12 and Mia was 8. And I thought everything was going well, with the typical ups and downs of any marriage, but nothing alarming. The thing is that Angela started hanging out with a group of women from the neighborhood, all wives of guys who had a lot of money, like CEOs and successful businessmen. And at first I thought it was fine because she needed friends, right? But after a few months, I noticed she started to change. Suddenly, she needed designer clothes, purses that literally cost thousands of dollars, spa treatments every week. And when I asked her why she was spending so much, she'd tell me she had to look good, that all her friends looked like that and she couldn't be less than them. I made good money, honestly, but not enough to maintain that lifestyle. And I told her that several times, but she'd get defensive and accuse me of being cheap or not wanting her to be happy. The next few months were a financial nightmare. Angela spent and spent without control. The credit card bills would arrive, and I'd be shocked looking at the amounts. One time she spent like $3,000 in a single day at a clothing store, and when I confronted her, she told me it was an investment in herself, that I didn't understand how important it was to feel good about yourself. I started working more hours to try to cover the expenses. I'd come home tired, and she wouldn't even ask me how my day had been. She'd just show me the new things she'd bought or tell me about the expensive restaurants where she'd had lunch with her friends. The kids started noticing something was wrong. Ryan asked me once why Mom didn't have dinner with us anymore, and I didn't know what to tell him. And then came that day. The worst day of my life up to that point. I came home from work on a random Tuesday, like at 7 at night, and the house was strangely quiet. The kids were in the living room watching TV. They asked me where Mom was, and I told them I didn't know, that maybe she'd gone out to buy something. But there was something weird in the air, that feeling that something's not right but you can't identify exactly what it is. I went up to our bedroom and found an envelope on the bed with my name written on it. I opened it and there was a note. And I still remember every word because it literally changed my life forever. The note said something like, "Brian, I know this is going to surprise you, but I need to do this for me. I met someone who can give me the life I always wanted, the life I deserve. I can't keep living like this, feeling poor and limited. The kids, I will be fine with you. You're a good father. I'll come back in a few years when I have my life figured out. Don't try to contact me. Angela." Just like that, no real explanations, without saying goodbye to the kids, nothing. I stood there reading that note like 5 times because my brain couldn't process what was happening. Was my wife really leaving me for another guy who had more money? Had she really abandoned her children, just like that? I went downstairs on autopilot. The kids saw my face, and I guess they realized something really bad had happened. Ryan asked me what was wrong, and I didn't know what to tell them. I mean, how do you tell your kids their mother abandoned them for money? In the end, I told them that Mom had gone on a work trip, and that she was going to be away for a long time. Mia started crying, saying she wanted her mom, and I hugged her, feeling like the worst father in the world for lying to them. But what else could I do at that moment? The first few weeks were horrible, basically hell. I worked full-time, so I had to arrange my schedule to take the kids to school in the mornings and pick them up in the afternoons. I hired a lady to watch them for a few hours after school, but that was more money we didn't have. On top of everything, Angela had maxed out the credit cards, like we owed about $50,000, and I was alone to pay for everything. I had to get a second job on weekends. I worked at an electronics store selling computers and cell phones. I slept like 4 hours a night. I was exhausted all the time, but I had no choice. I had to support my kids. The kids constantly asked me about their mom. At first, I kept telling them she was traveling, but after a month, I couldn't keep lying. I sat down with them one night and told them the truth. Well, a softened version of the truth. I told them that Mom had decided to go live her life for a while, that sometimes adults need space, and that it wasn't their fault. Ryan, who was already 12, looked at me and said, "She left us, didn't she, Dad?" And I couldn't lie to him. I just nodded. Mia started crying again, and I cried too. Honestly, the three of us just stayed there, hugging and crying, and it was one of the saddest moments of my life. After like 3 months, I made the decision to get divorced. I hired a lawyer, explained the situation to him, and he told me I had a super strong case considering Angela had abandoned the family. The problem was we didn't know where she was. She had kept her word about not contacting us at all. The lawyer had to publish notices in the newspaper and wait a legal amount of time before being able to proceed with the divorce without her presence. It was a long and tedious process. But finally, after like 8 months, I got the divorce and full custody of Ryan and Mia. At that time, I also decided we needed a radical change. The house we were living in was too big and expensive to maintain, plus it was full of memories of Angela. I put it up, and for sale. And fortunately, the market was good at that time and I sold it quickly. With the money from the sale, I paid off all the debts Angela had left, and I had some left over for a down payment on a smaller house in a town, like an hour away from where we lived. It was a quiet place, with good schools, and much cheaper. The kids weren't very happy at first with the idea of moving, especially Ryan, who had to leave his friends, but I explained to them that it was necessary for our future. The move was exhausting but also liberating, like closing a horrible chapter of our lives. The new house was cozy. It had 3 bedrooms, one for me and one for each of the kids, a small yard, and it was on a quiet street with friendly neighbors. Little by little, we adapted to our new life. I left my second job because with the reduced expenses, I could support the family just with my main job. The kids made new friends at school. I started going out more with them on weekends. We went to the movies, to parks, to simple places, but ones we enjoyed together. About a year after we moved, I met Julia. It was at a bookstore in town on a Saturday afternoon. I was looking for a science fiction book, and she worked there. She was like my age, maybe a year younger, had brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and glasses. I asked her if they had a specific book. And she not only looked for it, but we started talking about books, and it turned out we had similar tastes. She recommended several authors, and I left there with like 4 new books and her phone number because, basically, she had invited me to a book club that met at the bookstore on Thursdays. I went to the book club the next week, and it was weird at first because I was the only man there, but Julia made me feel welcome, and the discussion about the book was interesting. After the club, she invited me to get coffee, and we talked for hours. I told her about my situation, about Angela and the kids, and she was super understanding. She told me she had been married too, but had gotten divorced 3 years ago because her ex had problems with alcohol. She didn't have kids, but she really liked them. She worked with children and reading programs at the library in addition to her job at the bookstore. Julia and I started dating casually. We'd go to dinner, to the movies, walking in the park. It was refreshing to be with someone who was so different from Angela. Julia was simple. She didn't care about material things. She was happy with a dinner at home or an afternoon reading in the park. After like 3 months of dating, I introduced her to the kids. I was nervous because I didn't know how they were going to react, but Julia was incredible with them. She asked them about their interests, played video games with Ryan, helped Mia with an art project, and at the end of the afternoon when she left, Mia told me, "I like your friend, Dad. She's nice." Julia and I kept dating for like a year and a half before I proposed to her. I wanted to be sure it was the right thing, not just for me but for Ryan and Mia. One night I asked the kids about it before proposing to Julia. I told them I was thinking about asking her to marry me, but that I'd only do it if they were okay with it. Ryan, who was like 15 years old at that point, told me, "Dad, Julia's great. If she makes you happy and if you love her, then you should marry her." Mia said something similar, that she liked Julia and it would be okay if she became their stepmother. So I proposed to Julia one afternoon at the bookstore where we met. I asked the owner for permission to do it after they closed. I decorated the place with candles and flowers, and when she said yes, I felt like my life was finally starting to make sense again. We got married in a small ceremony with close family and friends. The kids were there, and it was a perfect day. Julia moved into our house and integrated into our routine super well. She cooked, helped with homework, went to school, Events, did all those things a mother does, but without trying to replace Angela, just being herself. The kids loved her, I loved her, we were a real family. And then, 6 years after Angela left, I got a call that changed everything again. It was a Tuesday night, the four of us were having dinner. Julia had made lasagna. She makes the best lasagna in the world, seriously, and my cell phone rang. I saw the number and didn't recognize it, but answered anyway. It was Angela. After 6 years of total silence, this woman calls me like nothing happened, and the first thing she says is, "Brian, who's living in our house?" I was in shock for a few seconds. I couldn't believe it was really her. I said, "Angela?" And she continued like nothing. "Yes, it's me. I went to the house and there are strange people living there. What did you do?" I told her we couldn't talk at that moment, that I was having dinner with my family, and she got angry. She asked what family. If she was my family. And I told her, "No, Angela, you stopped being my family 6 years ago when you abandoned us." I told her I'd call her later, and hung up. Julia asked me who it was, and I told her the truth. The kids heard, and Ryan literally dropped his fork and said, "That's Mom?" I nodded, and Mia started crying. It was a disaster. Dinner was ruined. I had to calm the kids down and explain to them that I didn't know what Angela wanted, but that everything was going to be okay. I called her later that night from the yard. I explained to her that I had divorced her, that I had sold the house, that I had moved and remarried. There was a long silence on the other end, and then Angela exploded. She started yelling at me about how I had dared to divorce her, that she had said she was going to come back, that I had betrayed our marriage vows. The irony was incredible. Literally, she had abandoned me, but I was the one who had betrayed something. I told her she had no right to be angry, that she had made her decision 6 years ago, and I had moved on with my life. She asked me where I lived now, and I told her that wasn't her problem. She insisted, said she had a right to see her children, and I told her we could talk about that through lawyers, if she really wanted to have some kind of relationship with Ryan and Mia. The next few days were chaotic. Angela called me and sent me messages constantly demanding my address, threatening to report me for keeping her children away from her, which was ridiculous considering she had abandoned them and I had full custody. I talked to Ryan and Mia about the situation. I asked them if they wanted to see their mom or talk to her. Ryan was direct. He said, no, that Angela had stopped being his mom the day she left. Mia, who was now 14, said the same thing, that she was angry with her and didn't want to see her. I told them that was okay, that I would support them in whatever decision they made. I sent Angela a message telling her that the kids didn't want to see her or talk to her, that she had lost that privilege when she abandoned them. She responded with horrible things, saying that I had brainwashed the kids, that I had turned them against her, that I was a horrible father. She also started sending messages to Julia. I don't know how she got her number. Maybe asking around or investigating on social media. She'd say things like, "Stay away from my family, you're a homewrecker, my children don't need a substitute mother." Julia at first took it well. She showed me the messages, and we laughed a little at how ridiculous the situation was. But then Angela started becoming more aggressive. She started calling my work, leaving messages with the secretary saying it was a family emergency. Once she showed up in my office parking lot waiting for me. I came out at the end of the day, and there she was leaning against my car. She looked different, thinner, with blonde, dyed hair, expensive clothes. She told me we needed to talk, and I told her we had nothing to talk about, that everything could be done through lawyers. She started crying, saying she had made a mistake, that the guy she had left with turned out to be a jerk who treated her badly, that she wanted to come back to her family. I told her that was impossible, that I had a new family now, that she had made her decision and now had to live with the consequences. It got worse after that. Angela started making up stories, telling people in the town where we used to live that I had cheated on her with Julia, that's why we had gotten divorced. Some old acquaintances called me asking if it was true, and I had to explain the real situation to them. She also tried to contact the kids directly through their social media, but they blocked her. I talked to my lawyer about all this, and he recommended getting a restraining order, especially because Angela was starting to harass not just me but Julia too. Getting the restraining order was relatively easy considering all the history of messages, calls, and the incident in my work parking lot. The judge approved the order, and Angela was prohibited from contacting me, Julia, or coming within 100 meters of us or the kids. I thought that would calm her down, but no, it basically made her angrier. She started posting things on social media about me. Nothing with specific names, but it was obvious she was talking about our situation. Posts about fathers who keep children away from their mothers, about second wives who break up families, that kind of thing. The last straw was like 2 months after all this. I had an important work dinner with my boss and several clients at an elegant downtown restaurant. Julia was going to come with me because it was an event with couples. We arrived at the restaurant, sat down with my boss and his wife. Everything was going well. We were on the main course when Angela appeared. I don't know how she found out I was going to be there. Maybe she had been following me or something, but she walked into the restaurant, saw our table, and walked directly toward us. She stood next to our table and started making a scene, she said loudly, so the whole restaurant could hear that I was a liar and a cheater, that I had destroyed our family, that I had stolen her children. My boss was in shock. My boss's wife, too. Julia was mortified, and I was furious. I stood up and told her to leave, that she had a restraining order and was violating it, but she kept shouting. In the end, the restaurant manager had to call the police, and they took her away. I had to apologize to my boss, explain the whole situation to him, and fortunately, he was understanding. Said that clearly I was dealing with a difficult situation. After that incident, Angela was arrested for violating the restraining order and had to spend a night in jail. The next day, her lawyer got her out on bail, but the judge extended the restraining order and warned her that if she violated it again, she would face more serious consequences. Since then, like 4 months ago, we haven't heard anything from her. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and honestly, I don't care. Life has returned to normal, more or less. Ryan is 18 now, and he's in his last year of high school. He's applying to universities and will probably study engineering. Mia is 14 and she's in middle school. She's doing well in school and she's on the volleyball team. Julia and I are good, more united than ever. After everything we went through. Sometimes I think about everything that happened and I can't believe it really happened. You know, that my first wife literally abandoned us for money and then 6 years later showed up expecting everything to still be the same. It's surreal. The kids are okay, I think, considering everything. Sometimes I notice Mia gets sad for no apparent reason, and I suspect she's thinking about her mom. But I don't pressure her to talk if she doesn't want to. Ryan seems to have processed it better, or maybe he's just good at hiding it. Julia is incredible with them. She gives them their space, but she's also there when they need her. She doesn't try to be their biological mom. She's just Julia, and that's enough. Last week, Ryan asked me if Angela would ever try to contact him when he turned 18, since he'd legally be an adult. I told him honestly I didn't know, that it was possible, but that the decision to have or not have a relationship with her would be completely his. He looked at me and said, "I don't think I want to. Dad, she had 6 years to come back, and she didn't do it until she saw that you had moved on. That's not love. That's selfishness." And he was right. My 8-year-old son had identified exactly what the situation was. I'm proud of him. Of both kids, actually, for how they handled all this. And that's basically where we are now. Living our life. Being a family. It's not the family I imagined when I married Angela over 20 years ago. But it's the family I have and the family I chose, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Sometimes life throws horrible things at you. People you thought would love you forever abandon you. But it also gives you second chances if you're open to them. Julia was my second chance. And the kids also had their second chance to have a mother figure who really loved them. I guess in the end, everything turned out the way it was supposed to.